that shines all throughout our religious tradition. It is God's light. We can narrow down the meaning of spiritual light in just one sentence. The light of God shines in the darkness of the world so that we can see. And there's a lot of darkness in the world, literally and metaphorically, but our faith serves as our spotlight, flashlight, and headlight. It is our lamp, our lantern, and light bulb throughout our entire lives. The light of God is found in all of our readings this morning. In our reading from 1 Samuel, the light of God shines the spotlight on a shepherd boy named David, who becomes the Lord's anointed and future king of Israel. Through God's light, the prophet Samuel could see what God had in store for David. In Psalm 23, the psalmist talks about being led through the valley of the shadow of death. One needs light to get through the darkness of life, which includes death and dying as well as lack of food and water, being on the wrong path, and facing one's enemies, all of which are addressed in the 23rd Psalm. In our reading from Ephesians, Paul admonishes us to live as children of light. He says we were once in darkness and were fruitless because the fruit of the vine cannot grow in darkness. Eventually, our darkness will be exposed. Finally, in John 9, Jesus refers to himself as the light of the world just before he heals a sight-impaired man with a strange concoction of rubbing clay and spit in his eyes, and then telling him to go wash in the healing pool. This is followed by a lengthy argument with some Pharisees about whether Jesus actually healed the man, leading Jesus to think that the problem with the Pharisees is that they are spiritually blind. They need the light of God to help them see God's love and power in the world. The light of God shines in the darkness of the world so that we can see. This is one of the great promises of our faith. So, in what ways do we live in spiritual darkness or blindness? There are three basic answers to that question: sinfulness, ignorance, and weakness. The first way we live in darkness or blindness is old-fashioned sinfulness. This is a Bible word that means, for lack of a better phrase, doing what we know we shouldn't be doing. Almost humorously, we see this sort of bad, often mischievous behavior acted out in nocturnal animals and insects. Included in this group are bats and cockroaches and coyotes and crickets and moles and owls, porcupines and possums, raccoons, scorpions, skunks, and tarantulas, which I all think belong here in Texas. And this is just a few. And what do most of these insects or animals have in common? Well, we don't like them very much. Nocturnal creatures, of course, are animals or insects that are active at night, under the cloak of darkness, rather than during the light of day. And when they are exposed to light, they are really usually up to no good. Roaches are a good example of this. When we turn on a light in a roach-infested house during the middle of the night, we see them scatter. looking for a dark place to hide, is if they are aware that they are up to no good. I do have a favorite nocturnal animal. It is the raccoon. I have shown a flashlight on more than one raccoon as it sneaks a peek over the edge of the inside of the garbage can, looking like a little bandit that they are. Raccoons know they're doing something naughty, which is why they do it at night. As humans, the light of God exposes our spiritual, nocturnal-like behavior as well, what we refer to as sin, which might be uncomfortable when it happens, yet beneficial for us in the long run. The second way we live in spiritual darkness or blindness is ignorance. That does not mean that we are dumb or stupid. It just means that, spiritually speaking, we aren't enlightened as much as we need to be. We are often ignorant of some of the great spiritual insights of our religious tradition. My favorite animal that illustrates this is the deer caught in the headlights. I have heard that if a deer is crossing a road at night and they look up to see the headlights of an approaching vehicle, they are literally dumbfounded. They don't know what to do. They become helpless and paralyzed, sometimes resulting in them getting smashed and the front of our cars needing repair. This happens to us as well, spiritually speaking. The light of God shines in the darkness of our lives, and we don't quite know how to respond. We are dumbfounded. It's not that we are bad or evil. It's just that we need more enlightenment. I'm sure the young shepherd boy David felt that way when the spotlight was fixed on him, as he was called God's anointed. He probably looked like that deer caught in the headlights. Speaking of shepherds, the third way we live in spiritual darkness or blindness is vulnerability, weakness. In this sense, we are not sinful or bad, nor are we ignorant or enlightened. We know what we need to do. We know who to follow, like sheep following a shepherd. But we sometimes feel incapable or unprepared. We are exposed in our weakness, vulnerability, as we try to walk through the valleys of the shadow of death and darkness. We need the Good Shepherd to lead us, to feed us, and to protect us from our enemies or predators. The 23rd Psalm is an idyllic portrait of God leading us on our journey through life within the context of spiritual darkness. In closing, let me shine the light as bright as I possibly can by proclaiming this. We struggle with the darkness of the world because we are sometimes sinful, ignorant, weak, and vulnerable. Yet, thankfully, the light of God shines in the darkness so that we can always see. Here's my Trinitarian formula for God's light. God is the source of all light. Jesus is the light of the world. And the Holy Spirit is the lighter. Amen.